What is actually happening here? Why are all cryptocurrencies going up and going down at the same time? One answer to this is Ethereum. Many of those altcoins are linked to Ethereum. So whatever happens to ETH is also very likely going to happen with the vast majority of altcoins. Have a look at this chart here. What we see here in blue, that's the market cap of Ethereum. What we see in white, that's relatively speaking, the market cap of others. So the altcoins that are not in the top 10. Clearly, there is a lot of correlation. The two assets tend to move in the same direction at the same time. And a lot of this has to do with how decentralized finance works through liquidity pools. Have a look at those altcoins. They tend to trade versus wrapped Ethereum. So the pricing of those altcoins is actually not happening in US dollars. It's happening in ETH. When Ethereum goes up by 10%, those altcoins go up by 10% per default as well, without a single transaction ever happening. So that's true for many assets on the base chain, that's a layer 2 on top of Ethereum. That's also true for many assets on Ethereum itself. Right, Chainlink over here, Memecoin, SPX, Floki. They're all traded in those liquidity pools. And I think it's because I describe those kinds of relations why the videos on Ethereum on this channel tend to outperform. The last video on ETH over here outperformed by 2.3x the average video on this channel. Probably also because we tend to get it right in terms of the Ethereum price development. What we see over here, that's the Ethereum dominance. And we did anticipate the bounce in April of last year. That's when Ethereum outperformed the rest of crypto by more than 100%. That's also when the story around Ethereum treasury companies started to get some momentum. What we see over here, marked as this arrow, that's the move from proof of work to proof of stake. So even though the tokenomics of Ethereum improved at that time, as in the additional supply that hits the market was reduced, that did not necessarily help Ethereum's price development. Ethereum after the merge underperformed. And maybe that was simply a sell the news event. So many people were anticipating that merge, and that brought Ethereum's price on a historical timescale relatively high. And many people took profit. The question is, what's going to happen next? It appears as if the treasury company story has lost its steam. By the way, I will make a follow-up video as well. Most people won't see that, but the subscribers of course will. Here's the Ethereum that's held by those treasury companies, and the vast majority of purchases are done by Tom Lee's Bitmine. If we exclude Bitmine from that chart, we can see how all those other companies have already stopped their purchases in September of last year. That's probably the main reason why the excitement around ETH has waned. The treasury company story is not a broad story, and even Bitmine itself tended to slow down purchases. But then, interestingly enough, maybe the current trend has turned around. Maybe we are breaking out. It appears like this on the dominance chart. It doesn't appear like this though on the Ethereum market cap relative to the Bitcoin market cap chart. Interestingly enough, those two charts look very similar. So this is Ethereum dominance, and here's Ethereum's market cap relative to Bitcoin's market cap. Those two charts don't look that different, but if we look at the recent development of ETH relative to BTC, we do not necessarily have that breakout here. It seems the breakout on the dominance chart is more clear than it is for ETH relative to Bitcoin. This chart does look quite bearish. And so in general, I like these relative valuation charts because it gives us an idea of where capital is shifting. Is capital shifting towards Bitcoin or towards Ethereum or towards the altcoins or maybe towards the stable coins? We can compare all of those different metrics. It gives us an idea of the current situation independent of whether the overall market is currently expanding or contracting. We actually find out where the current trends are. Have a look at this chart, for example. This is the Ethereum market cap relative to the market cap of the stable coins. How much bigger is Ethereum relative to the stablecoin market? Initially, Ethereum was much larger, 100 times larger. But then the stable coins tended to grow very quickly. And now, sometimes Ethereum has a similar market cap to the stablecoins, sometimes an up to 3 to 4x market cap. It does seem like there is a bottom though, at around 0.8. So that's when the Ethereum market cap is 20% lower than the stablecoin market cap. But there's also another way to look at this chart. Because those tops are declining over time, so are the bottoms. And so that's much less of an optimistic view. It does appear as if Ethereum is neither super expensive nor super cheap. And given that the market cap of the stablecoins has not grown in the last 3 months, that's not necessarily positive. We do not see any new inflows from traditional finance into crypto for the last 3 months. And that's very atypical for a bull market. So this is what I mean. This is the stablecoin market cap over time. Since October of 2023, we tend to see an expansion. We tend to see more money flowing into the market. But in the last 3 months, that growth has been close to zero. Stablecoin market cap grew pretty much at the same rate as the general US money supply. So that's 0.8% over the course of 3 months. Now, over the long term, Ethereum and the altcoins tend to move in the same direction at the same time, right? There's all this correlation. But if you actually divide the Ethereum market cap by the altcoin market cap, we do see interesting rotations. And that's this chart here. This is Ethereum's market cap relative to others. It tends to trade in a range over the last 9 years. Sometimes Ethereum is cheap, sometimes the altcoins are cheap. Currently, the altcoins, comparatively speaking, tend to be cheap. There is a good chance that Ethereum will underperform the altcoins in the near future. We have bounced off a resistance several times recently. And the dotted line that we see over here, that's the average ratio of Ethereum's market cap relative to the altcoins. If we remove the initial phase of adoption, we just look at the trading range, then the equilibrium is even lower. And we might fall for Ethereum relative to the alts by another 15% until we hit the equilibrium again. Of course, if you go all the way to the bottom, the potential drop is almost 50%. Now, short term, I like to time Ethereum like any other asset using momentum, using back-tested moving averages. I've talked about it several times on this channel, so I keep this very short. The best moving average for Ethereum, it's the 34-day, so that's when we backtest. That we buy whenever we are above, we sell whenever we are below. Here's that backtest. Here are the different durations. Again, the 34-day was the best historically. Most moving averages actually outperform just buying and holding ETH. And if you go long whenever we are above and short whenever we are below, that's the kind of return we get. So every horizontal line here is a 10x delta. The performance following that strategy is much more consistent and the down moves are much more muted. While Ethereum went sideways over the last 3 to 4 years, that strategy returned roughly 10x. And so I recently created an automatic copy trading pool. So if you want to automatically trade Ethereum based on that rule set, of course, we don't know if the rules will continue to work as well in the future as they used to. But if you want to bet on that strategy, this is the place. This is on gravity.io. There is a required code though to invest here. So this is reserved for the premium members of this channel, which is currently $125 per month. You can simply sign up once, then stop your subscription if you want to. Just make your desired deposit and let it run. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give this a like. It helps the channel grow. See you next time on YouTube or see you on Premium. Cheers.